Yeah, hi everyone. So, yeah, let us recap the last session. So, I think in the last session, we have discussed like how to install the Playwright. So, after installation of the Playwright, we discussed about a couple of commands like npx playwright test and npx playwright test and project and npx playwright test examples like how to run a particular file. Then we discussed about how to open the reports. Apart from that, we also discussed about how to identify the elements in Playwright. So there are three different types of locators. One is like Playwright inbuilt locators. Then we have CSS and XPath. So yesterday, except get by role, so I think we have discussed all other locators. And today, let us discuss about XPath and how to identify the XPath. Then we'll discuss about the CSS. After that, we'll create a simple scripts in Playwright with TypeScript and we'll run that. So now let us discuss about what is an XPath. And after that, we'll discuss what is the CSS and how to identify the CSS. Again, in the XPath, so there are two types of XPaths. So one is absolute XPath, the another one is relative XPath. So first let us discuss what is the difference between absolute XPath and relative XPath. So for that I'm taking a simple page. So yeah, let me run this page. This is a simple login page. So where you have this welcome back, this is the heading. Then you can see text sign in to continue your account. Then I see username field, password field, then forget password, sign in and create a new account. So this is a simple web page where it has a username, password and sign in button. So now let us see how the HTML of the DOM structure of this page looks like. So let us open this. Yeah. So this is the DOM structure of this element. So yeah, you can ignore the CSS part, style part I'm ignoring. So apart from this style, you can see, so we have a HTML tag here. This is the starting of the page. After that, we can see head. There is a tag head. So after head, you can see body. So inside the body, we can see there are many elements. Like for welcome back, there is a heading H1. Then there is a form. So inside the form, I can see input. So this is a username field. Then another input. So this is a password field. And again, you can see the submit button and sign up here. So these are the different elements that we can see in the HTML. So now my intention is I wanted to identify the absolute XPath of username field. So this is the field. So this is the username field. So for this username field, I wanted to identify the absolute XPath. So how to calculate the absolute XPath? So if you wanted to calculate the absolute XPath, you have to note down all the parents of an element. So you have to calculate, you have to get all the parents of an element. So now, so let us see what are the parent of this element. Suppose if you observe here, so this input, the input is the tag and this is the actual username field. So this username field is available inside the div field. So if you observe here, this username field, this is the username field. This is available inside the div field. So now here I can say that this is the parent of this input field. So here you can see this label and input, these two are at the same level. So these two are at the same level. So I can say these two are siblings. So here the parent of this username field is div. The same way the parent of this username label is this div. So again, if I minimize this div, so it is available inside the form. So now I can say that for this div, what is the parent form? So again, in the same way, so where is this form located? So the form is available again inside the body, because here you can see. So yeah, for the form, the immediate parent you can see body, because if I minimize this still, yeah, sorry. So this is main. Main is the parent of this form. Again, for main, what is the parent? Body. So again, for body, what is the parent? HTML. Okay. So in this way, generally, if you want to calculate the absolute X path, you have to note down all the parents from top to bottom. So in this case, so if I want to identify the absolute X path of the username field, so first you need to note down all the parents of that element. So now let us try this. So yeah, input. So input is the element for which we are looking for. So the input field. Then what is the parent of input? So for input, the parent is div. So you can note down the div here. Okay. So again, what is the parent of div? So for div, the parent is form. So I can say form. So again for form, so what is the parent? Main. So you can give main slash. So again, main is present inside the body. So I can give body here. So because for the main, the parent is body. So again for body, what is the parent? HTML. So you can see that. So yeah. So for body, the parent is HTML. So this is the observed X path. So now let us try to identify. So this is the observed X path of username field. So if you want, you can identify. You can go to Chrome. You can right click and click on inspect. And once you click on the inspect, you can go to the elements. And here you can Control F, copy this. So now you can see. So I got the absolute X path of username field. So how to calculate the absolute X path? So to calculate the absolute X path, you have to note down all the parents from top to bottom, including your element for which you want to identify the X path. So in this case, so I want to identify the absolute X path for the username field. So for this username field, we want to identify the absolute X path. So we have note down all the parents. So for input is the username field and its parent is div. Again, its parent is form, then main, then body, then HTML. So when I try the same thing in Chrome browser, just open the inspect, go to the elements, you can enter the absolute X path. Now I'm able to identify the web element username, enter your username. So this is the absolute X path. The same way if you want to do for password, we can do the same thing. So try to identify for password. So again, same thing. So for password, what is the parent? Again, input. Oh, sorry, not parent. So it has a tag input. And then again, you have a div. Because again, this is present inside another div. So I have to give like this. So first I'll give div slash input. So again, what is the immediate parent? Div. Again, its parent is div. Then we have a form. Okay. So yeah, this is the form. Then for form, what is the parent? Main. So I can say rest of the things same. Okay. So now try to identify using this. So you should identify the password field. Now you can see. So this is identifying the password field. So this way we can create the absolute X path. So what is the absolute X path? You just need to note down all the parents from root tag to the current tag, including the current tag. So this is how you can identify the absolute X path. But there are some problems with the absolute X path, because if you observe here, so the absolute X path, you are clearly noting down all the parents from root tag to the current tag. and root tag the current parent, then you are giving the tag or the element tag which you wanted to identify. So this will identify the username in our case. This will identify the password. So now what are the drawbacks with the observed XPath? Suppose let's say there were some changes that have made. So because of which, let's say instead of input, I mean the input is available inside the div. Let's say it got changed. So now, so if I go to here in the form, so we have username field. So now instead of input, let's say this has been changed. The parent of it has been changed because let's say they have removed this div. So they have made some code changes and they have removed the div. So now let me reload this. Yeah, so now the page has been loaded. So what is the absolute XPath? Earlier we used it. So this is the absolute XPath. Now let us try with the same absolute XPath. Now it will not be able to identify. The reason is, so one of the parent has been removed after some code changes. So earlier there was a div as the parent for this input, but after the code changes that has been removed. So since this has been removed, this absolute XPath is not going to work because this has been removed now. So that means if any of the parent changes, not only for this parent, let's say the main has been changed or form has been changed. If anything changes in the path, then absolute XPath is going to be failed. And suppose let's say there is a new element introduced. Instead of div, let's say they introduce some span. Again, this is going to fail. So that means if an element is changed or the parent is changed or if any parent is removed, in all the cases, absolute XPath is going to fail. So because absolute XPath clearly it clearly depends on the path from root parent to the current parent, including the child for which you want to identify the XPath. So if any element changes in the path, or if any new element adds, or if any name of any parent changes, so in all the use cases, absolute XPath is going to fail. So that is the reason. Usually, it is not a good practice to go with the absolute XPath. So absolute XPath is not recommended. So instead of absolute XPath, what we can do is we can use the relative XPath. So now let us see in the same case. So now instead of using absolute XPath for the username, I wanted to identify using the relative XPath. So how to create the relative XPath? So to create the relative XPath, so first give two forward slashes, then give the tag name here. So let us identify this element. So for this element, these are the different properties. The tag name is input, type is a property, it has text, name is another property, it has username, ID is username, placeholder, autocomplete, like that it has different properties. So to identify the relative XPath, first give two forward slashes, then give the tag name. So the tag name is input here. Then you can take any of the property of that element. So in this case, so this element has multiple properties like name, ID, placeholder, autocomplete. So you can use any of the properties which you can see as a unique. So in this case, I want to use the name, let's say. So then I would say at the rate of name equal to username. So what is the value of name attribute? It is username. So let us try to identify the element. And now you can see I'm able to see the username. So not only username, you can use any of these properties. You can use ID or placeholder, autocomplete. You can use any of those texts. So now I want to build another XPath. So using ID. So you can use any ID to build the relative XPath. So now it will identify the element. Okay. So now what is the difference between absolute XPath and relative XPath? In the relative XPath, we are not mentioning the complete path from root to the current. Rather, we are using two forward slashes and giving the tag name, and we are using an attribute here. So the attribute by using which you want to identify the element. So in this case, I use the name. So then in this case, what it will do is it is not going to check for the entire path. Rather, it will directly check for an element whose tag name is input and has the name attribute as username. So that is how this relative X path works. So now, suppose let's say for this relative X path, let's say the element, any of the root element is changed, then it doesn't going to affect because we are not depending on the complete path of the parents here, complete path of the element here. So this X path doesn't depend on any of the parents. So it simply tries to identify an element whose tag name is input and the attribute name is username. So if its parent changes, it doesn't affect. If any of its child changes, it doesn't affect because it will directly try to identify an element with this attribute name with username and tag name as input. So two forward slashes means it is going to check in the entire page in the DOM structure. So this is called the DOM structure. So it is going to identify the entire DOM structure with the name attribute as username. So this is how you can build the relative XPath. And not only ID and name, you can also use placeholder. So now let me use placeholder here. So to build the relative XPath. So what is the placeholder text? Enter your username. So this is the placeholder. So I need to give here at the rate of placeholder because this is the attribute. So this will identify the element with the relative XPath. So in the same way, here I used single attribute to identify an element, but you can also use multiple attributes if required. So instead of giving only single attribute, I can also provide like this. So this is to identify an element using multiple attributes. Okay. Yeah. So this is how you can identify the relative XPath. So you can use either only single attribute or you can use multiple attributes to identify an element. So yeah, and apart from this, we can also use, there are some XPath functions. So like if you want to identify an element using text, you can identify. So there is a methods like contains and following sibling and preceding sibling. And so there are other like text. So like that we have a couple of functions. So let us discuss these things one by one. So first we will discuss about contains, how to use the contains. So now here we can see a web element whose text is welcome back. Now I wanted to identify an element which has the text as welcome back. So there are two things. I can match with the exact text, that is one way, or I can try to identify an element which contains particular text. So you can identify in two ways. Let us try both the ways. First, I want to identify an element whose exact text is welcome back. So in this case, what is the tag name here? H1. So now I can give like this. So two forward slashes H1, you can give square braces text. This is a text function and give the full text here. So if you want to identify use an element exactly by using the text, you can use this text function. Okay. So H1 is a tag name. Text is a function which is used to identify an element by full text. So here I am providing text equal to welcome back. That means it will try to identify an element with the tag name h1 and it contains or not contains its text exactly match with welcome back. Okay. So in this case, this is the element which matches with welcome back. So it will identify this element. Okay. Now let's say I want to identify an element whose text contains continue. So as I think as we discussed yesterday, whatever the text that you see between the tag opening and closing of the tag, that is called the text. So for this P means paragraph. So for this element, this is the text. Sign in to continue to your account. But now my intention is I want to identify an element whose text contains continue. Okay. So that is my intention. So let us see how we can do that. So now to check that, I can give two forward slashes p. There is a method contains. This is called function contains text. So what is the text that you are looking for? Continue. So what this XPath does is it will try to identify a paragraph whose text contains continue. So text is a function here, and again contains is a function. Inside that we are using text function, contains text continue. Okay, you see, it has identified sign into continue because this is only the element which matches, which has the text continue. So this is the way how we can use the XPath functions. So we have used text function and contains function to check based on the text. Again, there is another functions like following sibling and preceding sibling. Let us discuss about this. So now let us go to this username. So here you can see two fields. One is a label field, another one is input field. So in some use cases, what happens is I may not have all this text. So I'll do one thing. So let me go to this username. Yeah. So now I'll remove all of this. I'm removing all the attributes. Let's say. Yeah. So now, yeah, this is the use case. Yeah. So now you can see here for the username field. Uh, so we have a label which has a text username. Then there is the input field. It doesn't have any attribute except text, type text. It doesn't have any attributes. But now I can identify this element easily using this text username. So now what I will do is, so let me do one thing. Yeah, I'll give this. Okay, so now I will identify this username field. So how can we do that? We have text here. So I would say two forward slashes. What is the field name? Label text. So what is the text of that username? So we are trying to identify an element whose text is username. So now it has identified this element, but our intention is to identify this element that is username field, but it doesn't have any attributes. So in that case, how we can identify? Because if you observe this label and input, they are under the same parent. So if you see multiple tags under the same parent, we call them as siblings. In this case, this label and input, these two are siblings of this div. So if you see multiple elements on the same parent, now I am able to identify this element. Then since these two are siblings, you can use this following sibling or preceding sibling concept. Because why I'm using sibling concept here? Because I'm able to identify this label easily, but this input we don't have correct properties to identify. So in this case, I can identify this based on this element, I can identify this. So if you observe here, this input is following sibling of this label. So that means this input is available after this label. I can say this is a following sibling. Okay. So now what I can do is, so the label we have identified using the username, then you can give forward slash following sibling and give two colons on the name of the following sibling. So now if I run this, it will identify the required element input. Okay. So this is how you can use the following sibling. So I'm able to identify a sibling. Using that sibling, you can also identify its other siblings of the same parent. Since this is available after the label, we are using this following sibling. So well, let us say reverse case where I am able to identify this element, but actual intention is to identify this. It doesn't have any properties. Then what you can do is you can give preceding sibling. So that is how we can make use of following sibling and preceding sibling to identify the elements. Okay. So let me restore this. Yeah. So this is how we can create a relative XPath. So in the relative XPath, we discussed about the text function, contains function, following sibling and preceding sibling. So there are many other functions, but like these are very frequently used functions while creating the relative XPath. So we discussed what is the absolute XPath and drawback of absolute XPath. So because since if there is any change in the structure of the locators, then absolute XPath is going to be failed. So then we have to use the relative XPath. So relative XPath can be formed using a single attribute, or you can use multiple attributes, or we have multiple functions like text function, contains function, following sibling, preceding sibling. You can do like this. And there is one more thing. Suppose let's say, so yeah, I'm trying to identify this username field. So how to form the relative XPath? So give two forward slashes, tag name is input. So at the rate name equal to username. So this will identify the username field. But now I wanted to identify its parent. What is the parent of input? Div. I want to identify its parent. So if for that you can give forward slash two dots. It will identify the immediate parent. Okay. So to identify the immediate parent, you can use this. So give the identify the element, give forward slash two dots. It will identify the immediate parent. This is one way, or you can also do like this. So I can say parent of div. This is also one way. Because what is the parent here? The parent is div. So now I can say parent of give two colons div. So this is also another way to identify a parent using the child element. So this is all about observed XPath and relative XPath. So now let us see how to form the CSS. Because so far we discussed about observed XPath and relative XPath, but now I want to identify the CSS. So CSS can also be built in the same way. Suppose now for the same username field, I want to build the CSS. So to build the CSS, what you can do is you can give the tag name, which is input, and you can use the attributes here. So the name attribute, ID, it has many attributes, but here we don't need to give at the rate symbol. You can directly give the value. So the difference between relative and CSS is in the relative XPath, we give two forward slashes, tag name, and we use the attributes here. The same thing can be done in CSS. So give the tag name, which is input, and directly use the attribute name and its value. Don't give at the rate. Okay. So now this will become the CSS of this element. So for the username. Okay, you can see it has identified. Now if I want to form CSS using multiple attributes, you can do that. So I'll build a CSS from this. So you can remove these two forward slashes. Name equal to username. ID is equal to username. So this is how you can build a CSS using multiple attributes. Okay. So this is one way using attributes. And suppose let's say uh, if an element is having ID and I wanted to form CSS using the ID, then what you can do is you can give hash and ID of the element. ID is username. So now if I try this, it will identify the username. Okay. So if you have ID, using ID, if you want to form the CSS, just use this hash before the ID of the element. So this will give you the CSS that is prepared by using ID. And suppose let's say there is a class name. So let us see here. So this submit button, there is a class. And if you want to form the CSS using the class name, use a dot and class name. That's it. You see, it is identifying the sign in button. So to form a CSS using the class name, just give dot and CSS, dot and class name. So this will form the CSS. Okay. So this is how we can identify manually, but you don't need to identify relative XPath, absolute XPath, CSS, all these things manually. So rather, there are many tools that are available with the help of which you can identify relative XPath or CSS. So one way is you can use the Chrome developer tool. Suppose let's say I want to identify XPath for this element for username. So as soon as you highlight this element, you see the element has been highlighted in the DOM. Right click on this, copy you can say, and you can see copy XPath. If I say copy XPath, it will give you the relative XPath. Okay, you see it is giving the relative XPath. This is one way. And here we are getting star. Star means it matches with everything. Because if I give particular field, then it will search only with that particular element with the tag name. But if I give star, it can match with any of the element whose ID is username. But if I give input, then it will search for only element that has the tag name as input. Again, in that input, it will try to identify element with ID. But if I give tab star, it will try to search for all the elements with ID username in the DOM. So that is the difference between star and giving the tag name. So yeah, it has identified the relative XPath. This is one way. Right click and copy XPath. Or if you want to get the CSS, use a copy selector. You can get the CSS. This is one way, but there is some other tools available which can identify these very easily. So one of the tool is Selectors Hub. So Selectors Hub is an extension in Chrome or Edge. So this Selectors Hub will help you to identify the locators easily. So let us run this. So I will install that. So yeah, Selectors Hub Chrome extension. So you can install this Selectors Hub. So once it is installed, I think we need to restart this Chrome. Okay. Yeah, I think it should get installed. Once it is, yeah, it got installed. So now let me close this browser. So now let me launch this website. Yeah, open with Chrome, I would say. Yeah, now it has opened. Now you can right click. So now you can see, yeah, click on inspect. So now you can see that we got a new plugin. So I think we should see Selectors Hub here. I think we are not seeing here. Okay, I'll do one thing. Okay, so or we can do one thing. So I think here it's not showing, but you can right click. You can see Selectors Hub. Yeah, from here you can get the XPath or CSS, whatever we want. So I would say copy relative XPath. So it will give you the CSS. This is the CSS. I think we should see that here. Let me try again because we should get that plugin here. Okay, I'll do one thing. Let us go here and try. Yeah. Okay. So let me go here because I think that tool should give us source demo. I think you can see here it is giving the locators here. Standard. Okay, I think there is some problem with this. Okay, let me restart this once again because it should appear in the Chrome developer tool, but it's not appearing. So once that selector hub is installed, it's very easy to identify the locators because it will directly capture the locators and it will give you the suggestions. Okay, so yeah, let us try this. I think for some reason it's not giving here. Okay, I'll check this. I think because it should appear here. Selectors hub. Yeah, I think now we got here. Yeah, click on the selectors hub. Now you can see. So it's giving all the locators. So now I'll go and highlight this username. Now you can see we got all the different locators. So here, when you click on the standard, it will give you CSS and XPath. So relative XPath, it has given input ID token, index XPath. I mean, based on the index, this one. Again, ID, name, class name, observed XPath. So observed XPath is a full XPath. Tag name. So like that, it is giving all the locators. And now I think we are also discussed about the playwright locators. If you click on the playwright, it is giving the playwright locators like get by role, get by label, and get by placeholder and locator. So get by role. So like that it is giving multiple locator. So I mean, you can evaluate these XPath or CSS or playwright locators. Or if you want, you can also use the tools like selectors hub to identify the locators of the element. And one more thing here is, so basically the first priority always goes to the playwright inbuilt locators. I think yesterday we discussed about these, like this get by text, label, placeholder, alt text, title, text ID, and get by role. These are the playwright inbuilt locators. So whenever you are writing the playwright automation scripts, these are the first priority. So if these playwright locators are available, we can go and use them. If these locators are not available, then go for CSS. Again, in the CSS is the second priority. If the CSS is not available, then go for XPath. Again, in the XPath, we need to use a relative XPath. We should not recommend using absolute XPath because, as we know, absolute XPath is going to be complete path. If anything changes in between, so it is going to fail your test case or fail your identification of the element. So that's the reason we usually don't prefer absolute XPath. Always we need to use the relative XPath. Okay. So yeah, so this is all about the locators. So we have discussed about playwright locators, then how to create XPath. Again, in the XPath, multiple types, absolute XPath and relative XPath. And we have discussed different ways of identifying the absolute XPath and relative XPath. Then we discussed about the CSS. So now I wanted to show you a simple script, so which is going to launch Chrome browser and it will log in into the source demo website. Okay. So let us go to the sourcedemo.com. Yeah. So now my intention is I wanted to write an automation script which will launch this sourcedemo.com. Then it will enter the username, password, click on login. So this is my intention. So before I write the script, so I think we need to understand few things in Playwright. So first we need to understand browser, then context, then page. Okay, so browser, context, and page. So we need to understand these three things first. So what is meant by browser? So generally in the Playwright, so browser means it can be any like a Firefox and WebKit or Chromium. So all these three things are called browsers. What is the context? So generally context is like an isolated environment. So I will give you some example of Windows operating system, let's say. So in the Windows operating system, so you can have multiple users for the same Windows system. So let's say I have user, the username is admin, then another one user is employee. Let's say I have Windows operating system. So in the Windows operating system, I have created two different users. One user is admin, another user is employee. Suppose now if I log into the Windows operating system as admin will be having different set of environment, because you will have read permissions, write permissions, he might have installed some softwares. So it is specific to that admin user. Now to the same Windows operating system, if I log in as an employee, whatever the data that admin has, that data this employee may not be able to see, because admin has entirely a separate context, employee has a separate context, because these two are isolated. When I log in into admin, then that environment is isolated to admin. So whatever the data that admin has, whatever the task that he is performing, all those things cannot be seen by employee. Again, if I logged in as employee, then that data will not be able to see by the admin. Just assume that admin is not a real admin. I mean to say this is in context of two different users. I can say to like employee as Rajesh and Rakesh. Let's say these are two different users accounts that are available in the Windows. So if you log in as Rajesh, you will have entirely separate context. You will have different software installed. You will have different configurations. If I log in as Rakesh, so for Logesh login, again once you log in, you will see entirely different things, because these two things are different. For Rajesh, he'll have a separate environment that is isolated to Rajesh. Same thing with Rakesh. So now context is similar to this user concept here. So for a browser, you can create multiple context. Each context is isolated. Suppose let's say this is my actual browser. I logged into it. If I see here history, so you have a lot of history and you have access to so many pages here. So this is one context. Now if I open a new context, it is like a new private incognito mode. Here you will not be seeing the previous login session, cookies, history, all those things you will not see here, because this is a separate isolated session. Again, now I'll create one more incognito mode. This is again a new isolated session. So that is what the context means. So whenever you create a new context in browsers, so that is going to be entirely a separate browser session, which will not be having any cache or history or cookies. So that is what context means. So in a browser, you can open multiple context. You can initiate a browser. Once a browser is initiated, you can have multiple context. Each context will be different. Each context will have its own set of cookies or its own set of history. So no two contexts will get overlapped, or they will not have same data. Okay. So contexts are like separate isolated environments. On a browser, you can launch the browser once. In that browser, you can have multiple contexts created. Again, page. So page you can create inside a context. So once you open the browser window, right? So now you have to open a new page. This is called a new page. So the page is the thing where you are going to access your website, perform your operations. Everything will be done in the page. So that means if you wanted to write an automation test case, first what you need to do? So first you need to create a browser instance. Once the browser is created, both browser instance is launched, then you need to create a context. From context, you need to create a page. So on the page, you can perform the operations like navigate into the website, entering the username, entering the password. So all those things can be done on the page. Okay. So now my intention is, so I wanted to navigate to this SaaS demo, saasdemo.com. I want to enter username, password, click on sign in. This is my intention. So let us go to our project. So now let me create a file here. I will say simple uh, playwright script.ts. So now, so as I told you, actually, Playwright with TypeScript is purely asynchronous. Okay. So the Playwright with TypeScript is by default asynchronous. So whatever the code that you wanted to write, everything should be written inside an async block. So that yesterday we have seen, I mean, day before yesterday, we have discussed how to create async block. Inside that, how to write the code, asynchronous code. So now let me create an async block. Yeah, so this is a async block that we have created. So now I want to launch the Chrome browser. So I want to launch the Chromium browser, navigate to the source demo. So as I told you, so yesterday we have installed the Playwright modules. So all these Chromium browser, WebKit, Firefox, all these are available inside the Playwright test framework. So now I have to import them. Import. So Chromium from Playwright framework. So I would say Playwright test. I think yesterday we have installed this Playwright test framework. Now I am importing this Chromium from Playwright test framework. So now then I would say chromium.launch. So there is a method launch. So launch is going to create a browser instance. Okay. So now it is going to create a browser instance. So just store that browser instance in some variable. I would give browser. So this will simply launch the browser instance and I'm storing that in the browser variable. And if you observe here, it is actually returning a promise. So if it returns promise, we need to use await because this is asynchronous programming language. So whatever the commands that we are using, all these are asynchronous. So whenever you see asynchronous, if you want to make sure that it executed in the correct order, we need to use await. So yeah, I'm giving await here so that it will wait until this line finishes. So now we have opened the browser instance. Our browser instance is created. Then we need to create a context. So I would say browser dot new context. So there is a function context, call that context function. So it will return a context. I would say constant context. Okay. And it is returning a promise. So use await here. Okay. Yeah. So as I told you, so first you need to launch the browser instance. After the browser instance, create a new clean session. That is nothing but new context. So from context, I need to create a new page. So I would say dot new page. Okay. Yeah, it will create a new page. So I would say constant page. Use await here because it also returns the promise. So this will launch the Chrome browser, the Chrome browser instance. Then it will create a new context. From context, it will create a new page. So now over the page, we have to use the page dot go to. So there is a method go to. So this go to method is used to navigate to a website. So to which website I want to navigate, sourcedemo.com. So provide that website address here. So it will navigate to this website and use await here. Okay. So now if I run this program, so it will launch the browser, Chromium browser, and it will navigate to this website. So now let us run this. So before that, I use page dot wait for timeout. I'll give 5 seconds here and use await here. So what is this page dot wait for timeout? So wait for timeout is a command or a function which waits for the fixed wait time. So here I gave time in milliseconds. So I have passed 5000 milliseconds means it is going to wait for 5 fixed seconds. It is not going to wait for any element or anything. After this website is launched and navigated to the sourcedemo.com, it will just wait for 5 seconds. Okay. Because I kept this wait time to see the execution, like whether it has navigated to the website or not. Because if I don't give this wait time, Playwright is very fast. You will not be able to see that execution. Okay. Yeah, now, so let me run this. So I would say npx es node test slash simple script. Okay. So let me run this. Yeah, I think we need to do one thing. We need to initialize the playwright configuration file. Sorry, the TS configuration file here. So I would say npx tsc init.
I think you mentioned yesterday that we implicitly mentioned like a headless at the headed.
Yes. Yeah, I'll show you that. Actually, because now I'm running this as a traditional TypeScript program. Again, we can
Okay.
run using Playwright. So Playwright is different. I mean, the Playwright commands are different. Here, I'm not using the Playwright test framework to create the test cases. That I will show in the next session how to use the Playwright test framework. Here, I'm writing this program in a traditional TypeScript way, where I'm launching the browser, navigating to the I'm creating the new context and page, all those things. Okay, so now let me try this. Okay, so it's saying that we need to install this. Okay, so now let me try here. Again, I will try npx tsc init. Yeah, because I want to have the the TypeScript configuration is created. Okay, so let me try. Okay, it's not creating actually because I'm running in the traditional way. So for that, I need to have the TypeScript configuration file to run this because currently, if I'm trying to run this, it is not running because I don't have this TypeScript configuration file. So that's why if I run this, so npx ts node test simple dot ts, it's not running. So yeah, it's not giving any error, but it's not running because I don't have TypeScript configuration file. So let me try npx tsc init. I think this is the command we need to do. This is not the tsc command you are looking for. Okay, it's saying that we don't have TypeScript installed. So I think we need to install the TypeScript. So let us try that. I would say npm install TypeScript save dev. So I should install the TypeScript. So once you install the TypeScript, then we need to uh, create the TypeScript configuration file. Okay, so let me try. So now we can try. So try TypeScript. So TypeScript has been installed. So now let us try same command npx tsc init. Yeah, now I can see that the TypeScript configuration has been installed. But I think if you remember, so we don't need to use this default configuration. Rather, we need to use the our own configuration. So let me do that. I think in our previous project we did that. So instead of using the default configuration, so I'll go and use the one that we require because we don't need all those parameters from that project. So yeah, let us go here and yeah, I'll use this. So this is the one I want. So let us go and replace this. On root directory, I don't want to use source. I'll remove this because here we are not keeping any root directory. Now let me run this. Now let us run this. So it's giving an error. Okay. So Okay, I think it's running into some errors. Okay, I'll stop this recording because I don't want to record all these things.